He remained in the NEC of the ANC Youth League and was re-elected in successive congresses until he exited the ANC Youth League in 2008. While he was an activist of the ANC Youth League, he belonged to an ANC branch and contributed actively to the life of his branch. Songezo was elected as the provincial treasurer of the ANC in the Western Cape in 2008 and subsequently elected as provincial secretary in 2011. This was an election which earned him the honor and privilege to serve as an ex-official member of the ANC's National Executive Committee, the highest decision-making body of the governing party of the Republic of South Africa. Songezo's resilience and dedication were some of his best attributes, not only in his politics, but also in his personal life. His love and commitment to his wife, Mjongile, a union blessed with two children, Zonwa Songezo Jr. and Huapili Zenane Mjongile, is an embodiment of his dedication to family. While serving as provincial secretary of the ANC in the Western Cape, he lost his dear son, Sakisizo Mjongile, who drowned at his home swimming pool in Mbabane, Swaziland. Songezo was a gifted soul, a brilliant mind, a humble human being, and an ever-joyful person. He never shied away from a challenge and embraced tackling intractable challenge with vigor and determination. He had a big heart and was deeply passionate about the things that mattered to him the most. He was engaging, brutally honest, and stood firm on his beliefs, even when others held opposing views. In March 2020, Songezo was diagnosed with colon cancer. He ended up being under medical home care with the support of doctors, his wife, mother, and siblings. Songezo fought with much zeal and stoicism and gave hope to everybody that he was getting better. On the evening of the 17th of September 2020, he sadly succumbed to colon cancer. Weeks preceding the 17th of September 2020, he took to his Facebook wall and wrote, "To all my friends and comrades, I discovered in April that I suffer from colon cancer. Chemotherapy treatment didn't work. Instead, side effects have led to 2 incidents of kidney failure and a mild heart attack. I survived with the grace of God. I am living my second lease of life to pray to God to give me power to raise my children and family. My last wish for all my sons, I want to contribute to the renewal of the ANC and success of the NDR." Songezo leaves behind his parents, his wife, Mrs. Humile Mjongile, siblings, Mrs. Zuziwe Dumile, Mr. Mvuzo Mjongile, and Mrs. Abigail Maduna, children Mandisa, Thando Lwethu, Sivikelo, Thando, Olwam, Keto, Zondwa, Songezo Jr., Huapili Zenane, cousins, nephews, and nieces. Phumla ngoxolo, Madiba.
Please be seated. Just to keep time, I've requested them not to go barehead because they want to say something, not to read an obituary. I'll first invite Songezo's sister, Olandela Songezo Uzuziwe.
First off, I would like to thank my family for their unwavering love, support, and presence. Friends, comrades, and any person who has been impacted by my father. It is so comforting to hear the beautiful memories and experiences everyone has had. I'm so proud to be standing here because of who my dad was, his passion, commitment, and drive to make a better world for everyone. His love and kindness. Daddy, you are phenomenal. What a life lived. You live this life to the fullest at every moment. Your resilience is impeccable. Thank you for showing me and teaching me so much. I treasure all our memories and all the times you have shown up for me. You always showed up. Your grand gestures were the best. In your final moments, as I spent those last few hours with you. You kept hugging me and holding my hand and telling me you love me over and over again. I will forever cherish that. Thank you for waiting for me, Daddy. Standing here, I'm so encouraged to keep being who I am and never change because of who you are, Daddy. You show me how integrity and kindness really do make the biggest impacts. To my siblings, Daddy loved us all so much, and he did the best he could. If anything, take with you his perseverance. Daddy was a fighter. So let's keep it up and fight till the end. My family, I love you all a lot and appreciate all you've done. Thank you to my friends and all who have sent condolences. May God be with us.
Anyway, not be able to see me. I always tease my brother and say that just because he's the eldest, he actually being the tallest. So the next one was the short one, which is me. I would like to share with you Songezo's life. Songezo, when we grew up, he was a deputy parent. When I say the deputy parent, it's because, as you have heard, if that we used to stay in Pal, in Bekweni. When we were staying in Pal, our parents were actually working in Cape Town and they were traveling a lot. So during that time, Songezo was a deputy parent. He learned from the young age how to cook, how to do washing, how to do ironing, and how to take care of us. And I think I was also part of the deputy parent because the two of us, we actually worked like twins in whatever that we were doing. And then Songezo have love for his siblings. Songezo loved us dearly. Most of you that actually knows us, you know that Songezo loved us dearly. When we got married with my in-laws, I remember also my husband used to ask if that, are you sure this is really your brother? Because of the love that he saw between the two of us. I remember when I lost my dog, at home we love dogs. Songezo came to my house and said the whole day, everyone that was arriving into my house, Songezo was sitting there from 9 o'clock until the evening because he wanted to welcome everyone that came and like the condolences with me of my dog. And then also, when my sister was sick, Songezo was here. He will travel. When he arrived, first thing that he does, he goes home and he used to call my sister's room, Ward 57, because all the time he was there with him, with her. The same as with my younger brother, Mvuzo. When Mvuzo got an accident, Songezo, immediately when Mvuzo was discharged, Songezo flew down with Mvuzo into Cape Town. So Songezo, to us, was really a dear brother. And that is why, when he became sick, my mom was there for the past 2 months, ever since after level 3 was actually open. Immediately, when level 2 was announced, which was announced, I think it was the Sunday and then Monday, Tuesday, they say it's announced. On Tuesday of that week, myself and my sister, we actually flew down from 20th of October. We've been there with my brother. And when he died, he actually died in our hands and in my mom's hands and in Umile's hands. Songezo loved his parents. Songezo loved his parents. His parents didn't like politics. They have different views when it comes to that. But Songezo respected his parents. And Songezo made each and every one of you comrades that are here to respect Songezo's parents' religion. And that is why today we are having a memorial, because tomorrow we're going to have a church service. Songezo, that's what he actually believes in. He actually loves his parents and he respects his mom and his dad dearly. Songezo loved Humile. Humile, I want to thank you. I know I did thank you when we were in Joburg. I want to thank you, Sisi. As young as you are, I know when we arrived in Joburg, first thing that Songezo told us was that, Zuziwe and Abigail, I know you are older than Humile, but please respect Humile. This is Humile's house. Humile, thank you, Sisi. Thank you for everything. You've been with much, and you know the way that we are so close. We couldn't come and be with Songezo, and Songezo was having an operation, but Sisi, you were there. I remember you used to call me all the time when you're in hospital and give me feedback. You didn't have to, but you did that because you actually told me and said, Zuzi, I don't want anyone questioning me if that what happened to Songezo. You let us walk through the path with you and with Songezo. And the minute that we arrived, I know I was there to stay for a week. I extended it into 2 weeks, into 3 weeks, into a month, into more. And you always welcome us into your house. I know at times we'll go paranoid. We'll run into your bedroom and just check on Songezo. And you allow us that. Thank you very much, Sisi. Thank you for borrowing Songezo to us, even though we borrow it into you. But your love, we really respect you. And the love that you have for Songezo's kids, all of Songezo's kids that are here, to whom he may have played part into them. Because Songezo, he introduced the children into Humile and said, Humile, will you marry me? I've got these kids. And Humile accepted Songezo for the person that he was. Thank you, Sisi. There's few women that will be able to do that. And I'm really grateful to have you as a sister-in-law. Songezo have been ill, but Songezo was a fighter. I remember I used to call some of Songezo's friends because when they visit us, maybe Songezo will be in a bad state, but when he's in a good state, I will invite you and tell you what Songezo is doing. I remember a week before Songezo passed away, Songezo was swimming in the swimming pool with his sons on. Right? There's a day that me and my mom wanted to go for shopping, and Songezo said, "You're not leaving me behind." And immediately, Umile dressed up Songezo and went for shopping with Songezo. So for us to see Songezo dying in our hands, it was quite a shock. We didn't even recognize if that Songezo was actually dying because we thought it's one of those moments that Songezo would have. It was like a roller coaster life that he actually had. And we all thought if that Songezo is going to make true. I know most of Songezo's friends have been with us. I want to thank you from the bottom of our heart for everything that you've done for us. You know you, I don't have to mention you by name. I did mention you individually and told you. I want to thank you. I want to thank your lovely wives that have been very supportive to us. You made this journey easy for us from the time Songezo was sick, the time Songezo passed away, all of you were there so that you can be able to encourage us. And also during the time that we're still in Joburg, preparing for Songezo's funeral, you were always by our side. I really want to thank you for doing that. I know all the time you say, Zuzi, you mustn't thank me, that's who Songezo is. But really, I want to thank you for everything that you have done for us. For us as Jehovah's Witnesses, we have hope for resurrection. And Songezo, I think it's something that we started noticing towards the last days that he was living. He was very spiritual. He was praying. He would tell us to pray every morning. I remember teasing him, telling him if that, Songezo, you pray too much. Maybe during the time that you were not praying, and so now you want to catch up with your prayers. Because he liked to tease me, and I like to tease him as well. And I want to thank each and every one of you for honoring my brother's life in such a very, very respectful manner. And I know if that from the day that he passed away until today, you've been with us. I want to thank you because you've made this journey easy for us. I know some of you will come to the house and you want to cry, but you find us not crying because all the load have been removed. Only thing that we need to do now is just to bury my brother. We loved him dearly, and we have hope if that we'll be able to see him when Jehovah resurrects us. Thank you very much.
I think I bring a new meaning to the word the black sheep in the family. I'm the only one who darker more than everyone. To avoid that, the time it was quite hard when we had made Mandisa visiting over. She's from Madiba, and we are walking in the mall, and then suddenly she wants to go pee, and there's this guy waiting outside, and this girl comes out, and people start looking at you funny, hey, are you not kidnapping, this little But anyway, I think my sister has said enough. I don't want to dilute her speech. I'm finding that sentence as a nice escape now. And she's Mafumwa Shekhaya. So I think when she speaks, I also listen, and also I think we as a family would like to thank Songezo, friends, political friends, his friends at large, I think for me, maybe ANC must start looking at a new career, I don't know about career, a support structure that can be offered to everyone. I've never seen the amount of support that we received from some of those colleagues or political friends, Like we were overwhelmed with support in all forms, And like I don't think we'll take this opportunity to name everyone because we're assuming that everyone contributed, paid respect to Songezo who came and visited us, was doing it out of their hearts. And like, I know what when you're sitting there alone, you know that you've also, done up to your full capacity. I mean, people have lost many sleepless nights. I used to call some of those friends at night because we've been told almost a month ago that Songezo maybe had about 12 hours to a few days. And I remember that night, I think I called Mjongile. I mean, in like a few seconds or minutes, they were all there, most of some of those closest associates. It's almost as if like they were all around the corner, but they made time. But like when you start to look at Johannesburg, how big it is, I mean, some of them come from as far as east and south of Johannesburg, but like they made time to just come and give Songezo, a bit of strength. And I think your presence around him during these last few days, gave him strength. Because I remember one of the doctors said to us, just allow people to come and see him. If he wants a glass of whiskey, give it to him. If he wants handers, maybe he's handers. If he, I job. You mean what? You mean, he's a member and he's so short, And I called this guy, so he came all the way. And when he got there, somebody just slept, But like, you can see with his heart, the drive he had, it's just unfortunately physically he could not accomplish some of his wishes, I think my dad is not here. He would have loved to thank all of you for supporting Songezo, we are very, very appreciative. To a point that most of Songezo's friends, it never really registered to me with, so-and-so minister, so-and-so, so they were all Songezo's brothers. Some of them, I grew up in front of them, when I first moved to Johannesburg 20 years ago. I was warmly welcomed and I was treated like a brother, all these years, And it's something that I really treasure and appreciate, Closure, I think from our side, we are very thankful for the support. We cried, and I don't think Songezo would like to see us crying. Actually, he used to shout at us every time we walked to his home. And we start looking sad. That's how poor man, I'm not in the mood. I want to be happy, I want happy people, We don't have time to cry, And I guess my sister mentioned, we as Jehovah's Witnesses, we have a hope of everlasting life in future, in paradise, and our hope makes us cry, but we don't cry without abandon in a temper, because we know what we are going to be Songezo in future. But from now on, we put our lives in the hands of Jehovah, our Almighty, to look after us, and we know that we've had many discussions around this one. We don't worry about tomorrow. Jehovah cares and knows everything even the smallest bird that falls. Who are we? We are worth way more than that. Jehovah even knows the number of our hair. You know, he cares about us. He knows exactly what we're going through, and he will support us. He will provide a way. So let's not worry too much, because that's what the devil wants. He wants us to worry and worry and worry. Devil would worry. Jehovah would, don't worry. I'll make a way. You know, and we so believe in that to a point that most of some of those friends, they've been at home many times. Actually, just a little one. So the other day, we were going to the mortuary to just go and identify the body before it came to Cape Town. I was with Mjongile and another friend of mine. And like when we got there, you know, I said to Mjongile, hey, this one is tough, you know. But like one thing I'm telling myself, Songezo is not here. This is not Songezo, he's not in pain. You know, we know Songezo's, this is just Songezo's body, you know, it feels no pain. Let's just get there, check if it's him, and then move away. You know, it was not easy though for all of us to even go and do that. You know. But in short, closing, thank you all, and please know that we really, really, really appreciate all your efforts.
Reverend Mjongile, just yesterday, silapha kwikhaya lakwamjongile. It was good to see utata nomama bencokola, sharing the life and times zonyana wabo. Since besuke eGauteng, kuyabonakala uba isehlo siyazama ungena kubomi. And Mama Mjongile reminds us yesterday of an incident which shows how Songezo appreciated and loved children. There was a time Songezo ahambile apha kowabo, very early in his life. Wayohlala eKhayelitsha. Xa ehlala eKhayelitsha, we stayed Songezo walimaza intombazana yaseKhayelitsha. Now, sihlala sobabili and amanye ama-comrade aseKhayelitsha. Kukho le family manje sithi sifuna uzisa isisu. Songezo sixakile ukuba sizasisapha isisu. Because, and le nto ndikhuthuza ngumama ezona. Ukuthatha isisu ukuzisa kulo Songezo, it was a no-no. Asicinga ecinga loo nto leyo. So we needed to find a way. And the reason Songezo thought so deep about it because akafuna ukubonakala ingathi uphika umntanakhe. And he's struggling to find ukuba ndiyafuna aba bantu beze kodwa Songezo kanjani. One Saturday eKhayelitsha, Songezo comes, no, it's on Friday, comes with an idea. Ukuba mfenendala, ebendibiza ngolo hlobo mfenendala sithetha izinto ezidibene nefamily. Ngomso bayeza aba bantu ndithi mabeza eKhayelitsha. Hawu, Madiba, kanjani? Wena ngomso uzawumtata omncinci. Now, ndiyothuka because ndicibene uzaziba sithi kanti inkomo yayazi. So uzawumtata omncinci, but a night before, Songezo made it sure ukuba ndilala late so that ndivuke ngekho right. And then something dramatic happens. Ndinenwelana ngelo xesha, ndandingumntu ophemayo ke ngelo xesha. So in order the family to appreciate what ngathi idibana notata omncinci, ndafakwa i-baby powder. story sponsored him, ask her, Mama Mjongile. And I'm relating this story because Songezo, all what he wanted to do, Zizi, there is no way Lumdana, I think I'm finding Lumdana, I'm missing. And I complied in order for my friend to achieve his dream. Ndahlala phaya, ndancedisa ukuthi ngumntana omncinci, ngapawuda, ndathula abantu bethetha ndathula. Ngelo xesha ndiphethe inkomo apha ecaleni. Abayithetha ngesayivuma loo nto. I'm narrating this story because, Mama Mjongile, I'm happy to see that part of abantwana balapha, omnye walo mntwana is a happy family member of Mjongile family. Nangu phakathi kwethu. We had to do something as friends to make sure that Mjongile, umntwana today, is a happy family member of Mjongile. Unkosikazi kaSongezo uliwele. Ndizawucela ke twin sister azothetha egameni likankosikazi. Khange sikwamkele unkosikazi, molo nkosikazi. Ndiyavuya nawe kwezi ntsuku zinzima. Simane sityelela apha endlini noko ubakho kwethu has helped to comfort you. Khumo Lukhatsu.
So this is from my twin sister to his husband, and she states as follows: My darling Songezo, words fail me today to express my heartfelt gratitude for being in my life and contributing immensely to what our family is today. Your love for me and the children was there for many to witness, and I am content that I knew for sure that you cared for me deeply and loved me and the kids. I am appreciative of the many years that we had, and more importantly, that your illness brought us closer together and tested my strength. I know that with time, I will do better and remain strong by looking into our children's eyes, because our family is grounded in unconditional love and loyalty. I will keep going. A few minutes before you passed on, you requested your mom and I to come close to you. You thanked the both of us, and you told me you love me. I will forever hold on to that final memory. I can't wait for the day when Jehovah's promise to mankind is fulfilled. The book of John 5, verse 28 says, Do not be amazed at this, for the hour is coming in which all those in the memorial tombs will hear Jehovah's voice and come out. I am comforted by this, knowing that I will see you again, Jehovah willing. The trajectory of our life changed the day you were diagnosed with colon cancer. Your will to live was a marvel to watch. With you in pain, you still found humor, found the time to share your thoughts on social media, found the strength to let the world know about your deteriorating health and how much you loved your family. That fighting spirit spurred me on and made me to fully comprehend the vows I took the day we got married. Now I can safely say that when I said for better or worse, and in health and in sickness, I meant it. I am heartbroken that I have lost a friend and the love of my life. I will miss you dearly, and aggrieved by the fact that you will not be in this life journey with me any longer. I know that your soul is at peace and you're resting. I know that Jehovah God will give us strength, guide us, and protect us. To your parents, you gave me a friend and a confidant with an exceptional mind that offered me the opportunity to understand myself. I say thank you for your unwavering support and knowing that I can count on you no matter what. To your sisters and brother, I love you all so much. I say thank you for your support. May we all continue to trust in Jehovah and remember that we should not rely on our own understanding. To my parents, siblings, twin sister, sister-in-law, Thank you for your support and encouragement, and most importantly, the love you have shown me. You have taught me to love Jehovah God, to endure, and to remain resilient throughout my marriage. To all our kids, your dad loved you dearly and wanted the best for you. Know that I will always be there for you. To his friends and colleagues, take heart, take courage. He is in a peaceful sleep and no longer in physical pain. I am eternally grateful for the outpouring of love and support we received from friends and family during this trying time. Thank you. My darling Songezo, I love you. I can't wait to see you again on Paradise Earth, where Jehovah God will fulfill his earthly promise, and according to Revelations 21 verse 4, it will be a different earth. He will wipe out every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more. Neither mourning, nor outcry, no pain be anymore. The former things have passed away. Thank you.
Thank you to the family of Comrade Songezo for having shared Comrade Songezo with us at the African National Congress for decades. Your loss is our loss, and your pain is our pain. From the reflections that you have shared with us, you've given us a deeper look into the life of Comrade Songezo.
Comrades, we sincerely apologize for passing the way we're running the program. As we indicated, so we have to release the family their preparations for tomorrow. Before I call the next speaker, towards the end of the late 80s, a decision is taken by the leadership to establish various units in the country. You had what was called in the Western Cape, one to free military wing, where MK will come and recruit from. You had a to something called Township Military Wing. Songezo was a member of a unit. That unit included Usaluka wake, the late Baba Mjongile, and many other comrades, many of whom are late. There's only 2 members of that unit as corner. Because Songezo was very brave, that's why in the lady Esizahaba, we started Mjongile, Mama Songezo started in 126. And it says an NY1, the reason we drove to this list of population, all this list of population, particularly NY1, Songezo as a member of the unit, he carried a lot of operations at NY1. You don't just tell him about ungeli xesha amkhileleke endlini nasecaweni izinto zithi. And we wanted to carry his loveless body apho wayehamba khona. Because Songezo had speed, bebaleka, so into ezininzi, we were very few, I think we were 5. Asiyazi nale unit decided uba mayibe khona and so on. Somebody was uthetha emva kom, but somebody I think unayo knowledge of that unit. Songezo was given a responsibility. Mama Songezo. Wanikwa everything ekhona. Ukuba kunendawo kuthiwa i-police station ebayigugulethu. Xa ungena. The operation was that Songezo uzawuthatha i-truck samo sidibene ne-truck. The operation was planned. Uzawuthatha i-truck. And most of the time Songezo wayephethe i-grenades esingazazi uzithatha. And we never asked him that. Because Songezo was a connection with nabantu esingababuziyo ngobani naba. So Songezo was to carry this operation. The police station is asking to be able to make this and the reason for the truck, but so the police station is around bring a police I said. So Katata truck delivery as I vulnerable because of a attack England. So there's why said at the police station. The mistake that operation never took place. So there's what about the truck wrong. Which is the reason why the police station is still there. I'm making this background to that when we were teenagers, to explain this background, we knew of a famous thing called Yengeni trial, and yet we knew little about the accused person. We knew little about an accused person, but we knew something called Yengeni trial. When's it when you don't? I left now Pombisha station. So when we were inspired by the act of bravery, because that area is called Southern Suburbs. You can't have anything. You can't go into anything. You can't go into So we inspired that by the act of bravery. That's why Songezo undertook that mission. In many other missions, I was in Zion. Upapa will tell you it was in Zion. So I invite you that. As a commander, again of Treasure, as you see, we're inspired by your bravery. I'm a comrade Swazio from here the things that they carried out. We were radicalized by your bravery. I invite you, Tornado, step in so yenge. Attention! Salute! Release! Songezo, viva! Viva! Molweni, uqala ngokuxolisa Comrade Master of Ceremonies, zizikodwa ngento yokubana ndiphakame ndithethe ndinxibe umnqwazi. Loo nto ndiyenza ngoba phaya emkhondweni, the Glorious People's Army, umkhondo wesizwe, when we're bidding farewell to a former soldier, we take a salute, as we have done. And you do not salute without wearing your hat. So ndicela uxolo kuloo ndawo, ingabi ngathi ndiyadelela, lisiko nesithethe sasemkhondweni. Mandiqale ngefemeli kaMadiba. Babulele bakho kwabo apha namhlanje. Uqala phezulu kutata kaSongezo uyokutsho umntana ezantsi. Mandibulise kutata umfundisi. Utata umfundisi uMehana ngemithandazo nentsikelelo asiphe zona apha namhlanje. I also want to greet all the comrades who are here, from all organizations and from all levels. I also want to greet the leadership of the African National Congress that is here today, led by the Treasurer General, Comrade Mashatile. I want to greet the leadership of the ANC in the Western Cape, led by Uzizi, Comrade Lerumo Kalaka. And also greet
a long-standing member and leader of the ANC in the Western Cape in our midst, Comrade Songezo. I want to greet all the commanders and commissars of condolences here present. I want to greet and take off our hat to all ex-combatants of condolences, a group of people who are marginalized by society and to a very great extent by their own organization. I want to greet those who took arms to liberate their people. I want to acknowledge and greet all cabinet ministers who are here today. I was looking around, I've seen a number of them. We've decided to come and honor the memory of Comrade Songezo. I want to greet the MPs who are here and acknowledge them. I want to greet the mayors and the councillors who are here. Those comrades that I've not mentioned, I'll only say good wishes to all of you. Those that I mentioned, those that I've not mentioned. Comrades who are gathering here today to remember Comrade Songezo. And to bid farewell to him. Songezo was a dear comrade, a friend, a brother. And may I say, Songezo, Madiba, Kibanyoni was a neighbor to me. Because our homes are not far away from each other. Comrades and friends, I still cannot swallow the notion that Songezo is no more. Songezo has always been full of life. Songezo has always been busy. Songezo was always present. Songezo was always on the move. Death is inevitable. But to me, death is the enemy. I'm saying so because during the struggle for liberation, I've seen many of my comrades being gunned down by the enemy. And the blood flowed on the soil. We were very angry when that happened. And we rededicated ourselves to pursue the struggle until it is won. Songezo joined COSAS at a very tender age and eventually and finally became its president. To understand Songezo, the political animal, you have to understand the involvement of the struggle led by the ANC during that specific historical period in time. One distinguished revolutionary theoretician and philosopher once wrote, and I quote, Men, particularly revolutionaries, are produced by circumstances not of their choosing. Close quote. Songezo was a product of historical circumstances that were not of his choice. Songezo was an actor in a play not written by him. But in time, Songezo became not only a conscious and dedicated actor in that play, but he became its leader and thinker. When I met Songezo after my release from prison, he was very young, but very militant. And what distinguished him from most of his peers was his grasp and understanding of the theoretical foundation of the South African Revolution. He had a sense of political, theoretical, ideological clarity that was second to none. He not only understood, but more importantly, he was able to articulate these theories of our revolution. At the time, COSAS conceived of various campaigns and operations that attracted great attention and sometimes even criticism. But Tliga was able to articulate the aspirations of black students and their struggles, their campaigns, with great articulation and conviction. Madiba was a product of historical circumstances not created by him. He was a representative of a historical epoch. He was a representative of a historical political generation in the struggle generally and in the ANC in particular. Songezo had unique qualities that were only unique to him. But most of those qualities were shared by most of his generational peers. In other words, Songezo was a true embodiment and representative of his generation in most, if not in all respects. COSAS was formed in June 1979. On January 8th of the same year, 6 months before COSAS was formed, Comrade Oliver Tambo, president of the ANC, had declared 1979 the year of the spear in honor and celebration of the centenary celebration of the Great Battle of Isandlwana. In that same year, it happened that my MK detachment had completed its first basic guerrilla course. And in our graduation ceremony, in our MK camp in Kibashi, northern Angola, the president of the ANC, Comrade Oliver Tambo, was present. And each one of us, individually, took a salute and took an oath before him. And we committed ourselves to spare neither strength nor courage in the struggle to free our people from colonial and apartheid bondage. At the end of that glorious ceremony, the president of the African National Congress, Comrade Oliver Tambo, named our detachment after the brave heroes and warriors of the Battle of Isandlwana. Our detachment was known as the Isandwana detachment. Is it a coincidence of history that Kosas was born in 1979? The same year the ANC was celebrating the centenary year of the Great Battle of Isandwana. And the same year OR declared the year of the spear. Probably yes. But what was not a coincidence is that those warriors who formed Kosas were responding to their own historical experience. And in doing so, they were unwittingly and wittingly walking in the footsteps and emulating the great example of the heroism of the warriors of that great battle of Isandwana, 100 years ago. I agree with Mjongile, a journalist, in his City Press tribute to Madiba, that Songezo was a foremost thinker and theoretician of his generation, an articulate orator and teacher of our people's history, and the theory and practice of our revolution. If you knew anything about Songezo, you will know that he, as a person and as a political animal, Songezo was not dishonest. That's one of his distinguishing features. Yes, like most of us, he had strong views on almost all issues. He differed with some of our views and with some comrades. And many a times, Songezo differed even with me, and especially with me. But he did so comradely, without malice. He did so without being dishonest. I like Songezo myself very much. He also liked me likewise. I don't know what he liked in me, but I liked him because I think that in him I saw myself when I was his age. I've shared so many good moments with Songezo. So many good moments with Songezo. Songezo was great fun. Songezo loved people in general. All people, young and old. He had great respect for those that came before him in the organization. But Songezo was an independent thinker and was not afraid to express his views, no matter who you were in the organization. Songezo loved life in all its forms. He was a happy champion. We became friends and I spent some of the best moments of my life with him. Many did not understand my relationship, my comradeship and association with Songezo and his peers, if you take into account our age difference. But as I said earlier, we were brought together by circumstances not of our making. Songezo was firmly committed to the struggle for the complete national, social, economic, cultural emancipation of our people. He made no apologies for his affiliation and membership of the ANC. Songezo was a committed member of the ANC until his last breath. He was committed to the National Democratic Revolution until the end of his days. comrades and friends a few weeks ago, he says, I pray to God that it gives me strength and energy to live so that I can contribute to pursuing the national democratic revolution and to continue bringing up my small children. In terms of the current political conjuncture in the country and in the ANC, we all know where Songezo stood. And at this point in time, comrades, Mashatile, the ANC is going through tremendous difficulties and challenges. Even at this point, Songezo was clear-headed about where he stood on issues. I can say with no hesitation that Songezo, despite his very strong views, he was no factionalist. He had a much more nuanced position, political position than many of us. He was matured politically and ideologically. He was a builder and a unifier. Through this text that I've just quoted, Songezo expressed his commitment and deep love for his wife and children. Yes, Songezo is physically not with us here today. Yes, he did not get the chance to bring his children up. But we, the living, his friends and comrades, must commit here and now to do everything to ensure that Songezo's children do not go hungry. And to his lovely young wife, the mother of his children, Mjongile, I would say, yes, you loved Songezo and stood by him until the end. Very quiet, very humble, committed to your marriage until the end. I want to say thank you, because siyabulela ukubana mfowethu umphathe kahle kangaka until the end. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And going forward, you should keep your head high and wear the mantle of Songezo's name and family with pride. And where it is difficult, be free to call any one of us. To come in and advise and assist where possible. So please, do not hesitate to call upon us. Do not be shy. Do not be embarrassed to call us. In fact, we don't need to be called. We should be there next to you all the time. I want to take this opportunity to also pay tribute to the general family of Comrade Songezo, to Umvuzo, his brother, and the sisters, and the children. Sibulela boni bo Madiba, bo Yemyemo, ubani siphe, unyana wenu uSongezo. Sibulela ngomazenzisiyo, sithi inkosi. Comrade Songezo, Madiba, siyabulela mhlekazi ukuba ube khona kelilizwe ebomini bethu. Ndlelanhle Madiba omhle, Madiba omde. Abuya khona sibulisele kumaqhawe angaphambi kwakho. Usibulisele koComrade Chrisani, sibulisele koComrade Peter Mokaba, sibulisele koComrade Solomon Mahlangu, usibulisele koComrade Papa Chobana. Tell them that the ANC is facing major challenges. The ANC is in trouble. We need their wisdom. We need their thoughts. We need their support. Recently, I woke up one morning and I was thinking a lot about Comrade Timpoani whole morning, and I was wondering what's going on. She was in my thoughts. And then, around about midday, I received a text message from her daughter, Lindiwe. Lindiwe says to me, Uncle Tony, I'm doing a video about my father, and I want you to be part of that project. It was very close to him. Of course, I was honored to be invited into that project. But after I spoke to her, and I said this to her, I thought about your mom this morning, in the afternoon you are sending a text. This is a very strange coincidence. I must call her. So I called Comrade that afternoon. I had a long chat on the phone. And I was relating the story to her. Comrade Timpo says to me, you know, Comrade Tony, I'm an African woman. I believe in my ancestors. I believe that though they are not with us, but they talk to us, they are alive. Probably Chris was talking to you. I'm relating the story because I want to say here, comrades, that Comrade Songezo is now an ancestor. Comrade Songezo is Nyanya. And knowing Songezo, I know that Songezo will not allow this Nyanya enjalo for the ANC to be stolen and for the ANC to be hijacked by reactionary forces. His spirit and soul will haunt forever those who dare seek to steal and hijack the African National Congress. Last point I have to make, Songezo ebe yindoda uSongezo. Songezo belukile. And this was not out of respect for his family and his religion. Songezo had great respect for his family, his mother and father. He had great respect for his religion. I was telling some comrades today that I spoke to Songezo's doctor day before yesterday, because I needed to understand medically what happened. He explained to me in simple terms. He says to me, Songezo was committed to his religion. And there are certain things that Songezo would not do because of that commitment. So this is what he has said. He said doctor-patient relationship, doctor-patient discussion. Because I needed to satisfy myself about what actually transpired. So, I'm trying to say, comrades and friends, that Songezo will look in a bit but that is not a statement against his religion. He was committed to his religion. But Songezo was also committed to the culture and tradition of his people, the African people. He didn't make a distinction between the two. Finally, Madiba, amba kahle mhlekazi. Sawubonana, sawuphinda sidibane ngaphambili. Ivule indlela nabanye bazakulandela. Siyabulela Madiba. Inkosi. Mama ngoxolo. Thank you.
Enkosi kakhulu Kabane uTornado. Sithembiso yendeli. Sizawucela ngoku uprincipal wesikolo.
Excuse me. Oh, sorry.
When comprehensive schools were built, for the first time there were 3 white principals deployed in the township in history. The first white principal was here, where Songezo was. The other one down the road in a school called ID. The third white principal for the first time was in a school called Luhlaza and Kailicha. There was an incident that happened in the school. Songezo and we It was a very difficult moment where, for the first time in Kegas, Sifumana all white principals in the township. Yes. So Songezo had to be taken out of the school. At that time, you could apply online to be which school do you want to go. You were deployed. That's why I was talking about joint SRC and so on. So our comrades will look at your capabilities and decide about which school you must go. Not decided. And what program must be achieved. So Songezo, why I was in school, I think a year later I went to college. Songezo went to Western School trying to Zemvuza. Wafika kona wafunda, and I want to thank the principal market before in advance, because when Songezo was elected president of COSAS, we went to that school. Satimano Noma Mubalaga's principal, Namanya principal, and requested Songezo an extra academic support. Because Songezo was a member of what was called then NECC. So he had no time. He was traveling between Cape Town and Johannesburg to attend meetings at that time. Mamubalaga's principal. Mamubalaga's indeed, ndiyathetha naye le online. Ingathi uvalelekile somewhere, ndicela abantu bamvulele. If I can be over school, is a principal. Senteni kakhulu ngawo. Ngibulele kakhulu no teacher osebenza nabo bezi members of a teachers union called DETU at that time. Is a man. Songezo unyamezele ekumosha esikolweni. Sifike sidisrupt classes usinyamezele kodwa.
quite an ambush. This young today, mandibulise, bonke abahlonipheki abakhoyo, izigaba ngezigaba, urhulumente, kwezopolitiko, ekuhlaleni, ngokukhethekileyo kwifemeli kaSongezo, that at some point became my family because we shared Songezo. I was not prepared for this at all, but why not for Songezo? I'm standing here where it all began. Kuthethwa ngemvuze. Yes, imvuze bububele, but these are not names that were given by us to these schools. Babubutsha obuchwepheshe kwi-township zase-Western Cape. When we taught here, as he said, I lasted for 1 year, less than 1 year. We had principals, we had teachers, white teachers, most of whom were taken from the security, apartheid government. It is in this school where Songezo was in this primary school, where there was a garden worker who caught our attention because the way they handled students, because it is the history and those conditions that produced abantu abafana noSongezo. Then it turns out that these teachers for these best schools, some of whom are no standard 5. I got closer to Songezo when he was enrolled at Joslovo, but this one was called Inchuku. Comprehensive schools with a technical inclination. Siphuma kwi-late 80s, at a time when there were challenges in our schools, our teachers as nandawo, metric failures have no chance to come back to school. Then you are surprised in the Western Cape when you see gangsterism, drugs, zingaka. So the history, struggles education around that time would be incomplete if we do not mention igama likaSongezo. The campaigns of the time were to form SRCs, to mobilize students to work together, to come together, to strengthen courses at schools. And the campaigns that they had to engage in were occupy the empty white schools, whilst our schools were overcrowded. Build SRCs, mobilize parents to take control of education yabantwana babo, to form PTSAs, which are today known as governing bodies. Misebenzi yoSongezo leyo. Ifamily kaSongezo must know that they produced a trailblazer, somebody who could have appeared to be going against the wishes of the parents and the rules and religion. Our life is contradictions all the time. But Songezo distinguished himself in those campaigns, and that's how we got to know the parents of Songezo. Those were campaigns coordinated by the NECC, were guided by elders. Ageism in Wenja, I don't know where it comes from. That time, you had Songezo, who could not even call me ma'am. I never had the luck I even used ma'am. It was Uma if busy. But Songezo would be here. We were working alongside Pro Jack. We were working with all Tatu Malindi for advice, or Tatu Kumbela, and many others. I may not mention Abanye and Kutulwe. But Songezo did not know boundaries. Songezo could relate with business people. Songezo could relate to academics, parents, religious leaders who were needed during that time to support umsebenzi educational organizations esikolweni. And there was a Western Cape Education Coordinating Committee, Yellow Xesha, bringing together the students under the banner Tosco. There was Udetu, before there was Satu. There's always been this competition. For instance, Usatu comes directly from Detu. Then after Guguletu, there was a resource center called Uderik. Eventually in Kailicha wakona Ukerik, based in Ushaza. And incidentally, Mama Songezo ran a tuck shop, a Kailicha, in Ushaza, where Kerik was based. You know, it was educational resource center. Around the same time that you had OKIP, these organizations that were called by these principals, communist organizations. This is where all the capacity building and bringing together students and parents and everyone else to strategize about reclaiming the education system here. Songezo distinguished himself, and it is only through those contacts that Songezo was able to keep unxibelelwano nomama wakhe when we ran to the tuck shop eluhlaza. One thing I just want to remind people about this particular school, where you had people like Onai, Fulani is a product of this school. This is the school where other groups would recognize by the principal is police and the radar. Songezo was part of all that interaction and part of all that network. So the conditions really needed abantu ababrave. And yes, as minister izinto, I'm only limiting myself to as about education. Songezo was so gifted that during that time, we worked with white schools creating new programs, twinning programs, to get white students to understand the conditions under which they operate in the township. To understand the work of rebuilding, what led to the South African Schools Act, what led to the Constitution, and all the acts relevant in our government today. Songezo was part of all those activities. Business was part of these programs. Songezo would excel to form committees, junior achievement, partnership between local government and businesses. Long before we knew about the word climate change, we had committees, the environment. Counterparts Songezo on that, they were at a different school, but this environment committee was part of all these committees that were under COSA, so that when they come, they report, this is what we are doing in our area. The renaming of the schools was a campaign targeted to reclaim the education system yet from the oppressive system, apartheid, nalamagama, entrenching ulawulo lwe-parents zethu by introducing e-governing bodies and PTSAs. Hence, the work of those resource centers was relevant. Songezo was one of those students, you know, when you look at teacher-student relationships, yes, unembeko, but teachers of that age themselves, being products of the previous systems, Songezo would be a challenging student because he would ask questions, he would challenge you, he would debate and persuade you to understand his point of view. So it was not easy when it came to ixesha lentobana Songezo was not always there. We were trying to have a code of conduct. But trust me, whenever he is not at school, you know that he is doing something. Results of which have benefited us and students today. An example, for instance, the year that he finished matric, he became part of international students' organizations and was invited to, I don't know if Sweden or Norway, but that is where Pandula Gawe, yes, was ambassador. So he became part of international students' organizations, and at short notice, Songezo would be invited. He would go, participate, and there would be follow-up invitations. It couldn't have been more than 3 days that he returned from one of those trips and had to come and sit for his matric exams, and he passed. Excuse me. Then again, during the course of these campaigns to reclaim these schools, I remember Western Cape is this republic within our republic. Even though we were in the new dispensations, it was a struggle to get permission to use our schools for the benefit of the community in deprived communities where you didn't have venues to hold meetings. I cannot remember what meeting it was, but there was a problem that necessitated that the Western Cape invites Peter Mukaba, Winnie Mandela to come and address communities in Khayelitsha. The meeting was held over the weekend. Obviously, Songezo was one of the organizers. Trust me, the following week, the security comes to the school. We need to give to account as to why permission was granted for these people to come and address their communities in a new South Africa. That led again to Songezo intoba anotiseke. Yes, he was Madiba. He was loved by our president. And I'm one of those who keep saying, I was disappointed that he didn't go into government. But yes, he went into business. And because we know all the various aspects that are needed to rebuild the society, he played a critical role, and he shone there as well. But yes, he was not lost to our communities. As I stand here, when history is told, like what I have heard here from the previous speaker, it is to encourage the generations to follow, to continue on the work that was done by people like Songezo. Because the conditions that we still find ourselves in, complicated further by things like what we have now, the pandemic that we have now, necessitate creativity and people coming together to look at the challenges that we have. This is why history needs to be told to the younger generations. So many Songezos must rise. Yes, he's multiplied in his family. The siblings are in business. on the student activism front as well, we need more Songezos to rise. Siyakhala, but knowing that he ran his race and lived true to the motto Pakosas, that each one teach one, he did it well, and we must continue and pick up his spear. May his beautiful soul rest in eternal glory.
Comrades, we now move towards messages of support from our ANC structures. I would like to invite to the stage Comrade Said on behalf of the ANC Youth League in the Western Cape. He will be followed by a message from Comrade Ayanda Drodro, who not only served among the women and activists of Mkonto Sizwe, but is a member of the NEC and leader in government. Comrade Ayanda will then be followed by the former Youth League, Comrade Phoebe Potgieter, who served with Comrade Songezo in the ANC of the ANC Youth League at the national level, and today she's the General Manager at the headquarters of the ANC. So I see Comrade Khalid is already here, and then followed by Comrade Ayanda and Comrade Phoebe in that order. Thank you.
Amandla. 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 Viva ANC, viva! Viva! Long live the undying spirit of Comrade Songezo and Mjongile, long live! Comrades, the family of our late former president of COSAS, former NWC member of the African National Congress Youth League, former provincial treasurer and provincial secretary of the African National Congress, a dear elder brother to those of us who came into the Youth League after his period of leadership, a mentor, a friend, a larger-than-life character, a servant of the people of South Africa, a servant who understood the unique dynamics of the Western Cape, a product of the youth movement, an ideologue of the highest caliber, a progressive business person. Many, many other attributes can be given to a son of the African National Congress, a son of struggle in this country, Comrade Songezo Mjongile. We first and foremost, before greeting anyone, wish to greet and pay respects and condolences to his family and thank his respected family not only for sharing your son, your husband, your brother, your father with the freedom struggle for liberation of this country, with the ongoing struggle for liberation of the black majority. Yes, I will say the black majority because Comrade Songezo Mjongile was passionate about the struggle for non-racialism, and he characterized the enemy. He characterized the enemy in its racial terms as well. We thank you for sharing Comrade Songezo with the freedom struggle, for sharing him with the movement, but most importantly as well for really contributing and grooming not only a cadre,
but a human being of high caliber, a servant of God Almighty. Because we can see, and the family have spoken about the respect for religion, and the movement is also respecting that as well, and he respected that. But you could see in his values, in the love that he had for the most vulnerable of people, in the way in which he did not make political differences something personal, in the way in which he wanted to serve and passionately see not only the ANC improve, but see the life of South Africans improve. There you can see somebody who was a good human being, somebody who was truly grounded in the ethos that the family has brought him up in. So we want to thank you and pay tribute in particular to the family. And our hearts are with you, our prayers are with you. And we know that when we also leave this world, the physical world, and we are resurrected in some of our cultures, we also believe in resurrection. And we are resurrected with the likes of Comrade Songezo and Mjongile. We'll be able to thank him yet again. And indeed, his good deeds on this earth, his struggle for the sake of building a truly non-racial and non-sexist South Africa and a better society will not go unnoticed. And we hope and pray that those good deeds, that selflessness of his, that revolutionary ethos, that revolutionary theory and practice of doing good for those who are vulnerable, will most certainly bring comfort to you during this most sad time and time of need. I also wish to greet and pay condolences to his movement, the African National Congress, on behalf of the ANC Youth League in the province. Movement that he loved so dearly, that he dedicated his life to. When we thought of Comrade Songezo, we thought of somebody who dedicated each and every ounce of his being to the vision and mission of the African National Congress. So we greet the leadership of the ANC, all levels of leadership, but as represented by the Treasurer General, Comrade Paul Mashatile, somebody whom Comrade Songezo spoke very highly about to us. I remember as the Youth League, when we were being inducted, when we were a PTT, I was the convener, he spoke about cadres such as Comrade Paul when he was still chairing the province of Gauteng. He spoke about having that ability to consistently not want to just go with the grain and go with a particular faction and not and be brave enough to differ, even if there's a dominant view. That was Comrade Songezo. Comrades, I'm not going to be very long because I think comrades have said and we want to respect that. But to say, comrades, that as we pay tribute to Comrade Songezo, we are paying tribute, as many speakers have said, to an organic cadre of the movement, an ideologue, one who represented the values of the African National Congress, a cadre who was not only, or at least let me say, one could see, even if we as the younger generation were not with him during the days of Kosas, but we were with him at a later stage, and we saw his growth and read about and were talked to about his growth. One could see in the manner in which he led the African National Congress, in the manner in which he related to our generation, for example, as Youth League leaders, us who are also leaving the Youth League at this moment, the manner in which he related to us and related to leading the ANC in the Western Cape at a very difficult time, one could see that this was a cadre grounded in the principles of the African National Congress. I say so because, as we pointed out, ideologically, very, very clear. the manner in which he could engage on the strategy and tactics of the African National Congress within a context of the Western Cape. The effort that he took to understand the political sociology of this province, given its diversity, on the national question, for example, was amazing. He even challenged us at times to also contest the definition of African in particular. When we said, no, African in particular, blacks in general, he said at our Youth League Congress in 2015 in Oudtshoorn, a historic congress, where he said to us, no, Comrade Khalid, you've made an input here, but have you seen it from this particular angle? What does it mean in the Western Cape? So he was able to robustly engage theoretically on ideas, and his actions as a cadre were consistently guided by the ideas of the African National Congress, by ideology, by his understanding of the NDR, by interpretation of the strategy and tactics. That was Comrade Songezo. Even when he went into conferences of the ANC and he would coordinate caucuses. We know that. In fact, some of us sat in some of those caucuses that he coordinated, going to conferences, and some of us at some conferences were on the opposite side to him, in the provincial conference of the ANC. But even then, even at that stage, his activity in that context was political. It was guided by his understanding of the strategy and tactics of the African National Congress, guided by his understanding of the implementation of the vision of the National Democratic Revolution. That was Comrade Songezo. Hence, after a conference, he would not remain loyal to a faction, but he was loyal to organization implementing the vision. Comrade Songezo, when he didn't re-emerge as a provincial secretary in 2015, he was not bitter. He did not go and try to take the African National Congress to court or undermine the structures on the ground. No, he understood, and he went into another stage of his development, which was business, but at the same time, consistently assisted the structures, consistently engaged, consistently tried to groom the younger generation. That was him, comrades. He was not somebody who was bitter. Even there was this high level of maturity that the comrade possessed when relating to the younger generation. He did not see us, and we had our fair bit of political battles at times in the early stages of the PEC of the Youth League, certain stages of the PTT of the Youth League, on various matters, but he did not take that personally. I remember after each and every working committee meeting of the African National Congress, where we would differ, he would call afterwards and say, look, I want to understand theoretically, where were you coming from? And at the same time, it was always about the growth of our generation. Even when Kosas at a particular time would write Facebook statuses attacking Comrade Songezo, the same Comrade Songezo would ensure that the programs and activities of Kosas in the province were running. The same thing with the Youth League in the province. My own development, comrades, and I do not want to speak about myself, but even, comrades, when there were battles at times, Comrade Songezo would consistently still be interested in my own professional development as a member and activist of the Youth League, own political development. That is what, so this comrade was not only to us as a generation of leaders of the Youth League, somebody was a provincial secretary of the ANC, whom we could relate to, but he became a friend, he became a mentor. Hence I say, he was grounded in organic cadre development because he understood all the principles of values of the ANC, which included comradeship and an understanding of humanity and relating to your comrade as a human being and seeing to their best interests. That was Comrade Songezo. And our generation now, comrades, has a responsibility to carry that particular legacy forward. To carry the legacy forward of Comrade Songezo when he consistently spoke about the fact that we must de-racialize the ownership patterns in the South African economy. But that when we differ with respect, we differ with politics. We have a discourse in the South African political landscape which is one of true activism for the service of our people and not one informed by greed and factionalism. I thank you, comrades. Rest in peace, our dear brother and mentor, Comrade Songezo. Amandla.
Program directors, Mama Umakmenga, Songezo's loving wife and children, his dear siblings, the TG of the African National Congress, and all other leaders within the African National Congress, I greet you all. We meet here today to bid farewell to yet another icon of our struggle, Songezo Mjongile, who departed the world of the living at a very youthful age. The African National Congress, to which he belonged, and the entire national liberation movement that he served so diligently, has lost a son, a soldier, a revolutionary, and an activist for life. I'd like to take this opportunity to extend our condolences to the family, including his dear wife and the children, the family of the African National Congress, and the people of South Africa in general, for the sad departure of our beloved comrade. He joins the worlds of the stalwarts like Oliver Reginald Tambo, Nelson Mandela, Chris Hani, Winnie Mandela, and many others who dedicated their lives to the freedom of the African people. Like them, his passion for justice and freedom propelled him to dedicate his life to the cause of freedom, and he did this with utmost commitment and enthusiasm. We will remember him as a fierce and open-minded leader who put the interest and the principles of the African National Congress in the struggle first. He was a critical thinker who stood his ground even in the face of adversity, the one who never feared to disagree and whose constructive criticism was geared towards building the environment. A cutting-edge youth leader who pioneered youth empowerment programs and who understood the critical dialectical relationship between the youth movement and the national liberation movement. Songezo was a firebrand. He never hesitated to defend the values and principles of our movement. A mentor, as Comrade Khalid had said earlier on, to many young activists within and beyond the ranks of our movement. A father, a husband, a friend, a comrade, a leader, and most of all, a revolutionary. Songezo was steeped in the values, traditions, and heritage of our great movement that was bequeathed to us by John Langalibalile Duma, by Sifako Makhatu, Josias Gumede, Isaka Kaseme, A.P. Duma, and many other leaders of our illustrious organization. I knew him as a loyal and dedicated member of the ANC, and especially during the time we worked together in the Western Cape when I was deployed here as an NEC deployee, when he was the secretary of the ANC in this province. I also worked with Songezo towards the 1999 general election under the auspices of Vodani Mawetu. In that year, the ANC registered an overwhelming and convincing victory at the polls. In one of the last social media posts, he declared, "My last wish for all my sins, I want to contribute to the renewal of the ANC and the success of the National Democratic Revolution." The renewal of the ANC that Songezo was referring to is the return of the values and the integrity that instilled by its forebears at its inception. An ANC whose mission is focused solely on the emancipation of the poor African and the black people, and not one that attracts opportunists and corrupt individuals. Songezo wanted to contribute to the reorientation of the ANC so that it cleanses itself from the destruction of factional tendencies. He wanted a united and progressive African National Congress, an ANC that respects the will of the people and the foundations of our democracy. Such was the character and caliber of the comrade we lost. We will miss his bravery, commitment to the struggle, steadfastness to principle, and above all, his love for the people of our country. In his sickness, when his body was weak, he got concerned not only about his own healing, but the healing of his movement and the people of our country. With him, his health was intrinsically connected to the health of the African National Congress and the need for renewal so that the people of our country can be served best. Songezo served his movement and country in various capacities and played his part amazingly, from COSAS to the African ANC Youth League, and as a professional secretary, and at some point as the treasurer here in the Western Cape, and also as an ex-official member of the NEC. He strived to heal our movement from the problems of factional politics. It was a long-held view and conviction that we are allowed to have leadership preferences, that the ANC is a democratic organization, and that he himself had his leadership preference, but when conference was over, he refocused his energies to the historical mission of the African National Congress, the National Democratic Revolution. That is what I want to implore all of us to do. As members of the ANC, let us refocus all our energies on the historic mission of the people's movement. Songezo, Mjongile, Madiba has gathered us all here today, just as our forebears had gathered in the Bloemfontein 108 years ago, to dedicate ourselves to serve the people of this country. A life lived in service of others is a full life. We mourn today that he died young, but this man lived a full life. The best amongst us has departed. Let us pick up his spear and charge forward. Lala Mutolo, Yebiem. Enkosi.
Amanda, to the parents of Comrade Songezo, his wife, the children, brother, sister, and the extended family, our sincere condolences. Treasurer General Paul Mashatile and members of the NEC, leaders of the ANC in all of the different capacities, leadership of the leagues, comrades and friends. Songezo was just 22 years old, 22, 23, was going to turn 23 that year, when he joined and was elected onto the National Executive Committee of the ANC Youth League in 1996. Comrade Malusi was elected as president, I was elected as Secretary General. I see Comrade Lassie here, Comrade Swacha, Justin, they were all part of that collective, and I'm sure there's a couple of other comrades. Now, that generation, that National Executive Committee of the ANC had a number of lessons for us, and let me mention a few. That even though at that Congress we had a contest for position, so the position of president was contested, deputy president, treasurer, I don't know what else, Lassie, but we emerged with a leadership that reflected the continuity and the change of the ANC Youth League. And that leadership were able to come together, but in addition to that, it also represented a generational change, which is natural in the life of a youth movement. So 2 years earlier, in 1994, we saw another generational change. Peter Mokaba gave over the reins to Comrade Lulu Johnson. In 1996, Comrade Lulu Johnson gave over the reins to a different generation. And that's in the nature of a youth movement that is 76 years old, and that is our African National Congress Youth League. The second issue about this NEC, comrade, was that it was also testimony to the pioneering work that was done by the likes of Comrade Akua Peters, Comrade Brenda Leonard, Comrade Linda Mafola-Shope, Comrade Sharon Davis, and Comrade Numi Sekonlo, who fought for a non-sexist youth league. And at that Congress in 1996, we not only just elected nearly 40% of women onto the NEC, but for the first time, unlike the ANC, we elected a woman Secretary General as well as a woman Treasurer, and we went on again to do it at a subsequent Congress when we elected Comrade Buiswa as Secretary General and Comrade Nikiwe Num as Treasurer General. And that's part of this movement that Comrade Songezo was part of. The third feature of that NEC that I want to talk about is the fact that it brought together, as we did with the Youth League of 1944 and subsequent generations, the Youth League, the Provisional National Youth Committee, when we had to rebuild the Youth League in 1990, it brought together young people from the community-based organizations, the Youth League branches in community. It brought comrades from the faith-based organizations. It brought comrades from COSAS, from LUSAS, from SUNSCO, from all of these different organizations, and said that the ANC Youth League is a home for all South African young people. And this is the kind of NEC that Comrade Songezo was part of. Comrade Songezo was elected in 1996 after the conference onto the National Working Committee of the ANC as the Secretary for Youth Development. And it was a full-time position. In preparations for this tribute, I went through my notebooks from 1996 and 1997. I still keep them. And what struck me about just glancing through them was the fact that how often we discuss matters of youth development. And it was no doubt because of the leadership of comrades and the enthusiasm that Songezo brought to this portfolio of youth development. So even though it was the generation and the NEC of Comrade Lulu Johnson that in 1994 to 1996 lobbied for the establishment of a National Youth Commission, it was Comrade Songezo that now had to give flesh to this national institution and also to make sure that it has policies. And he led that process. The Youth Development Committee was active. It met with what we call our young MPs, met with the provinces, and Songezo led that process. Eventually, the Youth League was launched in June 1996, led by Comrade Mashatile Bengu. And of course, it was then followed by Comrade Nomi Konlo and Comrade Jabu Mbalula before it became the National Youth Development Agency. But Songezo made sure that we had, as the ANC Youth League, a youth policy that we can propose to government that eventually then became the cornerstone of a national youth policy of this country. But Songezo in 1996 in this portfolio didn't just stop at the National Youth Commission. He said that, you know, we have provinces, so we need to make sure that the provinces also have structures that take care of the issues of young people. But above all, and I know Comrade Malusi and I didn't really understand it, but he convinced us, was his obsession with what he called local youth units. You remember Songezo started talking about it after the local government election, and we said, Songezo, what are you talking about? He said, no. We've got structures at national level, we've got structures at provincial level, but you do need, at that very community level, you need to have structures that look after the concerns of young people. He had an organic understanding of the importance of local government and the need for young youth development at this basic level. Songezo was actively involved in the development of our youth policy, but where he excelled was at the level of driving youth development campaigns. And Songezo always thought outside of the box. He would often come into my office, and we were still at Charles at the time, and say, with his notebook and his pen, and say, Eshi, do you have a moment? And I knew Songezo had another brainwave. The obituary that the ANC Youth League embarked on, working with South African breweries and others in the industry, was quintessential Songezo. And I remember one day I called Songezo in before we had a youth development subcommittee, and I said, Songezo, please explain to me, because I really don't understand, why are we having a campaign against alcohol abuse with SA breweries? And 40 minutes later, when Songezo left my office, I may not have liked it, but I was convinced. And I said, okay, let's take the matter to the Youth Development Subcommittee. Because Songezo knew exactly, he's researched the issues, he knew the tactics and what the strategy he wanted to do, and he was able to articulate it and convinced. At some point during that term of office, we called him jokingly Comrade Single Issues Campaign. Because he was very passionate about a whole range of different issues that affect young people. The question of HIV and AIDS, we had to have a campaign about that issue because he says the people that are most affected are young people. And the ANC Youth League need to lead a campaign against HIV/AIDS, changing behavior, and all of that. The question about lobbying for multi-purpose youth centers. Songezo, in that portfolio, made sure that the Youth League campaign, when we spoke to our MPs, when we spoke to ministers, he took up those issues. He took up the issues of youth-friendly health and reproductive services, and also the sports facilities at schools as well as in townships. And that was the kind of passion and creativity that he brought to this youth development portfolio. His work in the portfolio was always practical, and it showed his passion for young people that so many other speakers spoke about. He was also very creative, and from the commitment to after-school classes in schools, and he had a very, very extensive program about it, to his very early suggestion that the ANC Youth League should start internet cafes in townships to be able to provide services to young people, but also to raise funds for the ANC Youth League. That was just some of the bright ideas that he brought forward and that he championed. Comrade Songezo also loved to engage in endless debates about the motto of the Youth League, what it means to fight, produce, and learn, and why there was a dialectic between these three parts of the motto of the Youth League, in terms of that we need to fight for economic and political emancipation, that we need to learn, that we need to ensure that we produce so that we can own the means of production and the economy of our country. He was also passionate about the twin task of the ANC Youth League, the fact that we need to have a responsibility to champion the issues of youth and young people, but that we need to be a body of opinion. The Youth League must be a body of opinion within the ANC to be able to influence it as the generation of 1944 has done. And there were endless discussions about this, as the other comrades will bear testimony to, including the issue of the autonomy of the Youth League. But Songezo was also far-sighted. He was amongst the first, as Ma'am Principal said, that talk about issues of environment. And we thought, Songezo, but now, you know, there's very important issues about why are you talking about these three hanging things. But Songezo was passionate about those things. But also far-sighted about standing up for children and young people with albinism, as well as the need to champion the issues of lesbian and gay youth. And he was foresighted and progressive in that way ahead of his generation. Many comrades in their reflections on Songezo has also spoken about his political acumen. He loved politics, he loved analysis, and he took a keen interest in the world around him. He listened to different views, took on board views that he thought agreed and had merit, and was not hesitant to differ when the need arose and to state his views very clearly. We may recall that in 1996 and 1997 were also the years when GEAR was introduced, the economic policy, and my notes also show that our NEC discussed this at length, and Songezo's voice could be heard on the ideological differences between GEAR and the RDP, about whether GEAR is a tactical detour or it was a class project. But he did not hesitate to speak a contribution to the first Presidential Job Summit of 1998 on the issues of youth unemployment. Our NEC also had something called, if Comrade Malusi can recall, an Evaluations and Operations Committee to monitor and review specific officers, functions, and even sometimes individuals. And I looked on the notes about what we said about Comrade Songezo, and it includes on the positive column about his work ethic, his creativity, his commitment and passion for people and students, his ability to relate to everybody across the board, young, old, irrespective of their station in life, irrespective of sectors. His friendliness, his smile, even when he has disagreed with you vehemently. He'll come to you after the meeting or during break and make a joke, and everything will just be fine afterwards, and he'll continue to treat everybody in a comradely basis. There was a very short negative column, and the column that was listed, and I suspect this must have been Kiro that did this, was Songezo's love for parties. That was stated on the negative column. There weren't much other issues. But then there was a note in bracket that said that he always turned up when there was work to be done. So he partied hard, but he turned up when there was work to be done. Comrades and friends, this has been a very small window in a life that was expansive and rich. We served the Comrade Songezo for a further term on the NEC until 2001 when I left the Youth League. And it was such a pleasure to see him coming into his own over the subsequent years. To face setbacks, whether of a personal or political nature, always focus, and to emerge stronger, wiser, even though he may have been older. What enabled him to do this was the self-confidence, and listening to his family today, I can see where he got that grounding from that strong family background, the love, and what the family has given to him, formed the basis of that very strong backbone and core of human being that he was. Songezo and his generation have defined their generational mission, and the current generation of young people have before them the task to define their mission and rebuild the ANC Youth League, member by member, branch by branch, campaign by campaign, as Comrade Songezo has done, so that indeed it becomes an instrument of young people for emancipation and reconstruction. Comrade Songezo was deeply committed to the building of the ANC as an instrument of the people. He did so when he was leading the ANC Youth League, and over the last decade or so, as we heard from other comrades, in building the ANC in the Western Cape as Provincial Treasurer and Secretary, and when he passed on as a member of the IPC. Indeed, after battling the colon cancer, he had a few days of silence on social media, and his absence was felt. But soon he was back. As always, assertively stating his view, taking on board other views, and arguing his case. Indeed, Songezo died with his boots on. Till the better end, he remained seized with the state of his movement and the state of his country. He remained positive about the future, even if it may not include him. Comrade Songezo has joined many from his NEC and COSAS comrades who no doubt welcomed him to the afterlife. Comrade Mjongile, Tami Khubusani, Comrade Peter Mokaba, Comrade Lumisa Konlo, Azayan Changase, Pax Mankashlana, Stitch Nkubane, Ignatius Jacobs, and many, many others who went before him. Rest in power, Comrade Songezo and Mjongile. We shall miss your smile, your militancy, your energy, your activism, and your intellect. Hamba Kashle, Amandla.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. When I first met uqala kwamubona umuntu omnyama emhlophe ndabona uqala ubona uMalusi. After he was elected, Songezo, in that watershed conference, I said to him, Malusi came here with Songezo. Malusi will remember this. I hope you remember this. because I think it was one of your nightmares in Cape Town. Asifika Songezo, then call, fetches, comes easy, and then see Songezo, Songezo, Sibulise. Down the road to Songezo, Ukwindlu ethengiswa umqube. Sifike sibambele ebhotini omqube, and ukhala usuku. Abantu baseGugu lethu ke bayawazi umqube oskwatsha noThoni. Awazi kahle. Society. Abantu baseGugu bayawazi. Lokubona lamqube nendlela. Now, I need to Manusi that night because throughout, Songezo drove Manusi almost in every place ehlala abantu abelokishini. Because Manusi akayazi Madiba. Ubona sefikile. Manusi kept on saying, "Hayi Songezo. Siyenza lento. Hayi kuthunye apha siyolala kanje. Akubiza president. Hayi siyolala Mr. President." Hayi kwenye indawo. "Hayi Songezo. I invite you from the president." I invite you.
I think what Zizi forgets to say is that Songezo wacishe wangibulala that night, literally. Mandla, long live the fighting spirit of Comrade Songezo, long live. Long live. Umndeni. I would like to acknowledge the family yakwa Songezo, khokhelwa ngumama, the leadership of the ANC, led by our Treasurer General, the Tripartite Alliance leadership, the leadership of the Progressive Youth Alliance, the former leadership of the ANC Youth League in all their different categories, fellow mourners. During this, the year of our most obstinate winter that seemed to last a lifetime, it seemed we had become accustomed to stopping by the side of many a grave in order to pay our last respects to many combatants, patriots, and fellow midwives of the new South Africa. Today we have assembled on this grieving piece of earth to pay our last respects to one such patriot, Songezo Mjongile, that belonged to that generation of gallant youth that on the journey from racial tyranny to independence had ceased to fear death. Since the news of his untimely demise reached our unsuspecting ears, we have worn the garb of excruciating pain, struggling to come to terms with the sad reality of the sudden immolation of an African jewel in our midst. Songezo's life was singularly and unconditionally dedicated to the struggle of our people for total emancipation. He eschewed the pleasures of youth to participate in the struggle of his people for independence from white tyrannical rule. Inspired by O.R. Tambo's call for the development of the all-round leadership competencies of the youth in order to prepare them for their future role at the helm of the national democratic revolution, Songezo plunged himself headlong into youth struggles and organizations, both as an activist and leader. For many years, he was a champion of youth development, which he regarded not just as a fancy title, but instead as a pivotal program in pursuit of the restoration of the dignity of the black youth and breaking the cycle of poverty in black communities. It was thus under his watch as head of youth development in the ANC Youth League that he spearheaded the establishment of the National Youth Commission, Umsobomvu Youth Fund, and the South African Youth Council. He would also play a vital role in forging cohesion and mediating overlapping mandates between these three organizations, understanding the different roles they had to fulfill in society, but particularly among the youth. Songezo would also be pivotal in public awareness campaigns the ANC Youth League led in the early 2000s against drugs and substance abuse, racism, HIV and AIDS, popularizing the ABC slogan, and campaign for youth economic participation, which became a precursor to the campaign for economic freedom in our lifetime. The campaigns he led for equality, accessible and free education as a student activist and leader laid the basis for the eventual achievement of free higher education. This decision liberated millions of black youth from the burden of generations of having to study under the heavy burden of debt, of having to bear on their heavily indebted shoulders the education of their younger siblings, and of the unbearable black tax that still haunts many black youth to this day. When he was elected into the ANC Youth League NEC in 1996, he became a part of the collective charged with taking the organization through an exciting period of renewal and political reorientation, emerging as it was from half a century of resistance to racial tyranny. The question then was, what would be the new mission and role of the youth, and particularly the ANC Youth League, in order to rebuild it into a militant and formidable instrument of the pursuit of the political participation and socio-economic aspirations of the youth. Songezo would deploy his immense intellectual prowess and charm, his affable nature and steadfastness, to help us provide answers to the intractable questions of our time. As part of this generation, they solved the existential questions that the ANC Youth League faced and forged it into a formidable force that it ultimately became. The man who have come to honor was not merely a national patriot, but a progressive internationalist and pan-Africanist who held resolutely to the firm conviction that Africa still had to destroy the final vestiges of colonial rule and defeat imperialism as the only basis for unity, regeneration, and social progress. His foray into business was not merely influenced by raw appetite for wealth, but it was out of his passion for radical change in the structure of production and ownership patterns in our country's economy. In joining the Black Industrialist Program, he underscored his hatred of the fact that our economy continued to reproduce colonial patterns of ownership and control, and thus continued to exclude black people, which affirmed the preponderance of white-dominated monopolies and oligopolies created during white minority rule. It bothered him that the colonial ruling class, in its racial, class, and gender composition, remained still dominant during the post-apartheid era, with little meaningful effort to change that situation. He was thus determined that we should transform the patterns of ownership, control, and management of the economy, and reverse the trend of deindustrialization, which had dogged our economy since the advent of democracy. To overturn this reality, he believed that we had to unite the ANC and black people in general in pursuit of total emancipation. He yearned at all times for maximum unity among our ranks, anchored on a program of action to reverse the legacy of dispossession, the super-exploitation of black workers, and the socio-economic marginalization and disempowerment of the black majority. We owe it to him to rebuild and renew the ANC Youth League, an organization to which he dedicated over a decade of his young life, not as an instrument in the hands of factions in pursuit of their ignoble objectives, but as a potent force for revolutionary change in our society. We must expedite the work to return the ANC Youth League to its rightful owners, the youth, and continue to strengthen the ideological and political consciousness of the youth so that they free themselves of factions and become a revolutionary force for radical change. Today, as we assemble like this, we are awfully aware of the painful prospect of facing up to these struggles without our leader, who unified us against all beliefs and sections. Yet we are determined that his spirit will continue to guide us in pursuit of these goals to which he single-mindedly believed. He set us a compelling example that shall see us through our most difficult days ahead. Rest in peace, our dearest and cherished brother. It is well.
This is a succession debate. Long live the undying spirit of Songezo Mjongile, long live. Long live Songezo Mjongile, long live. Long live Songezo Mjongile, long live. Thank you very much, Program Director Zizi Kodwa. The family of Songezo Mjongile, his mother, blessed by a presence in this farewell, his siblings, Uzuziwe Mjongile, Umvuzo, his wife, Humile Mjongile, and the mother of Humile, and the twin sister. Songezo's children, abantwana baka-Comrade Songezo, uye wasixaka apha ezintsukwini esixelela amanani esingawaziyo. But all of you, you know that your father loved you, and your father was a hero of our people. The leadership of the African National Congress, led by the Treasurer General Comrade Mashatile, our TG, fellow members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC. Madiba, we are here to bid you farewell with the Youth League comrades in the
Western Cape leadership and the country at large. Many comrades would have loved to be here. Others are joining us through digital platforms. This is the best we can do under the circumstances. Madiba, Songezo, aka Tricha, all comrades are here. Comrade Mjongile is here. Your brother and your comrade. Umcebisi Skwacha is also here to bid you farewell. Comrade Lerumo Kalako, Uzizi, and yazi uzawulanda ngubani kula police station. Besikade sichitha kuyo dlamini. Many comrades are here. Uzocho, the chairperson of your region. No JJ, Dimbonile de Damti Chupe, Apapani. JJ, when Songezo went to Johannesburg, even though the Bispulali Sukyualapa, in Johannesburg, JJ, kwenye ndaupa ya maslams bebehlala kuyo. We need to thank you, JJ. You really looked after us. And Temba Novatana is no more. Nike and credit card yamata. Many comrades are here in the leadership structures of the Youth League you served with. Pumezo Mkulwa, our Treasurer General, is here. Comrade Phoebe Potgieter, your Secretary General, I'm sure you are smiling. He gave a full account of your activities. Phoebe had a handful of Songezo no temper no matter. But Phoebe guided Songezo and shared their own experience and a passion for youth development. And that guidance led to the Youth League adopting for the first time a youth policy for South Africa. Phoebe spoke about that. Malusi Gigaba was our president. Phoebe was our Secretary General. And Malusi is also here to give a full account about our activities. Comrade Songezo, TK Liza is here. You will be proud that both of you discovered Sahara. And I don't know the skills of identifying musical talent, where did they come from? But you managed to produce a talent for South Africa. Mjongile Masina, one of your best friends in the Youth League. And to the last days of your time, Mjongile was there. Sometimes I thought Zwai exaggerated things about how you are doing. And we will shed tears and cry all around you, and with Zwai being there. But Mjongile is one of the people who have always been there for you in difficult times. As you know, the path we traverse in politics is never easy. And it has never been easy for you, Madiba. Lunganwana is also here. Ndiyambona unempandla ngoku. Uthe xa ndimbuza ngale mpandla wathi besebenzisa some other product and then ayopandla in real sense. When I came to the Western Cape, mandated by Malusi and them, I met you with Lunga, and Lunga was the most talkative and the most chatterah and the most forward when it comes to liking money. And he never got so much to the end about politics. He always looked at business side of things. That was Lunga. So when we deployed you to Limbede, and you met with Lunga along the way, and you partnered in Limbede, we were not shocked and surprised. But many people are here, and many comrades are here. Your past executive, Justin Dialende, is here. From the Western Cape, the people who served before you in the youth structures of this province. I've not seen Tempers Kuchwa. I've seen Justin Dialende is also here. I've spoken about him, and many other comrades. And of course, Comrade Lassi Chiwayo is here. Comrade Lassi was one of our comrades who would like to display his ideological skills when it comes to thinking in the Youth League. Ndingafa ngabafazi because there is no mfanelo, your best friend. I saw here, Mfamfa. Is one of the best women in this Congress movement we produced in our National Executive Committee. Well, I will add with Comrade Ronald Lamola, our Minister of Justice, the man who used to protest alone, and Mjongile have joined him. And these days, and protest. The hall would have been full more than it is now. Mama Songezo. Kamatawani. These are comrades who toiled with Comrade Songezo here in this Western Cape and nationally. I'm just mentioning a few of comrades who were the closest in terms of the ranks of the Youth League, in terms of our accolades. The children of Songezo, these are the people we lived with, and others are out there. Comrade Chiliti spoke very well about Songezo and gave an account. Songezo's relationship with Chiliti brought us Mandisa from Namibia. And then Songezo met Ingrid in Namibia, Mandisa's mother. And they were together with Chiliti. Chiliti was the Secretary General. Over and above politics of strengthening our relations with SWAPO, they brought us Mandisa. So, we are forever grateful. We are forever grateful for that, Mandisa. I mention you not at the expense of other children of Songezo, is because you will be remembered in the history books. And when your father was the president of COSAS, he brought us you. Comrades and friends, a gentle heart of a giant has abruptly ceased. A red jewel has fallen from the crown. A genuine frontline fighter of our democratic revolution has fallen. A human titan for social progress is gone. A shepherd of our collective hopes, dreams, and wishes has taken permanent leave of absence. The sharpest arrow of Lisupatsila Lawalta Sisulu has been broken. A steadfast shield of the spear of the nation has been halted. A sparkling light of hope has been extinguished. a glossy foliage rose of the Madiba family has been pruned before its season. We mourn your loss, Songezo, because you stood tall like a towering cathedral when the brightest stars were momentarily dimmed. You planted your feet on our land as strongly as the great baobab tree and spoke with the authority that was tempered by human kindness. You were a genuine comrade to all of us, beautiful, elegant, dignified, strong, and indeed you spoke authority with the gentleness of the breeze. At the height of repressive laws of apartheid South Africa, here in Cape Town, we knew that it was an oasis for the thirsty, a rest stop for the weary, and a restaurant for the hungry. Your untimely departure marks the closure of yet another page in the history of our struggle. It marks a life ceased and a selfless service ended. A peerless revolutionary who devoted his entire life to the service of his country and his people has departed. A tireless defender of a just cause and worthy architect of our freedom is no more. Today we dip our banner to the sudden death of a virtuous, servant, and outstanding revolutionary. A true compatriot, an amicable soldier for peace, has been whisked away by the cold hands of death. Songezo Mjongile has received this summons to join the innumerable caravan that moves to that mysterious realm where each shall take his chamber in the silent halls of death. Through his departure, we feel the pain and sadness occasioned by death. You always had good ears for the depressed, big hearts for the crushed. Kunjani chomi, that was Madiba. Words of wisdom for the uninspired and good advice for the confused. You saw inhumanity and condemned it. You saw justice and raised a moral voice against it. You saw human suffering and alleviated it. You saw hopelessness and gave hope. You saw peace and maintained it. You saw progress and promoted it. You saw good even in the most flawed of human beings. As we look back over time, we find ourselves wondering, did we remember to thank you enough and celebrate you whilst you lived? We comrades who are still alive, remember each other and love each other. Even if we differ politically, remember just to pass a word, I love you, comrade. That is just the only thing. Nothing less, nothing more than that. For all you have done for us, for all the times you were by the side of the people, with the people, to help and support them, to celebrate our successes as a people, to understand our problems and accept our defeats, or for teaching your generation by your example the value of hard work. We wonder if we ever thanked you for the sacrifices you made to let us have the best. Madiba, and for the simple things like laughter, smile, and times we shared. If we have forgotten to show you our gratitude enough for all the things you did, we are thanking you now. And we are hoping you knew all along how much you meant to us. Guided and energized by the lessons you taught your generation, we will meet the challenges ahead and we will prevail. Comrades and friends, you can shed tears that Songezo is gone, or you can smile because he has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he'll come back, or you can open your eyes and see all is left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what it wants. Smile, open your eyes, love and forge ahead. He was a generous, loving, supporting, and unselfish friend who always put other people before himself. Zizi Kodwa can attest to that. When I met Songezo with Zizi Kodwa, I actually said Zizi has got an accent of foreign people, and I used a derogatory word. And I won't repeat it, and Zizi hated me for some time. And because of that, he was charitable, giving and considerate and kind. He was always involved in something. He always had a marvelous time. Nothing was too trivial for his attention. He was a noble comrade who gave strength, but asked for no reciprocity. None of us ever heard him complain, and yet he had so much of a burden of challenges. He never shared his sorrows, only his aspirations. He considered himself so blessed that he felt he had no right to burden others with the doubts and worries inseparable from the human condition, even for a man so strong as himself. It was this extraordinary burden which culminatively drained him, though he would never have admitted it. One had to work with Songezo to sense his doubtlessness, strength, his pragmatic sense, and his unquenchable optimism. Songezo was optimistic about everything. He had a firm belief that obstacles were there to be overcome, just as he believed that problems presented a spectrum of opportunities. He could never imagine that the wrong could not be right, or that an honorable aspiration was beyond reach. Self-pity, rage, resentment were incomprehensible to him. He loved his family, and he loved his people. In his mind, the two were connected. He deeply believed that his moral obligation to serve his people was a privilege. Service was not a favor he rendered to others, for he firmly believed that they did him honor by permitting him to help whatever sphere he was involved in. He was convinced that his country duty to vindicate his values was reaching out to the rest of humankind. It troubled him deeply when comrades made unworthy comments about those in his view had been entrusted with our future and therefore the hopes of mankind. One of the few times he became impatient with me over the past few years was when I became uncontrollably intolerant and impatient with the style of leadership in our movement, reminiscent of uncritical thinking and lack of proper advice. Do I have a remedy? Songezo wanted to know. And when I said no, he would quickly pause it. I quote, "But you must remember in all material times that a country and its leaders are overwhelmed by problems. Your duty is to offer solutions." Close quote. Songezo was a man of contrasting qualities, cheerful and yet withdrawn. He could be aggressive in asserting his beliefs, but he respected those with whom he differed. He could be hard but never petty. He could be single-minded but never malicious. He permeated our lives. He was steadfast. He practiced his faith, but he was too humble to expect others to live by his standards. He always preached to us how his family was so indebted to Christianity, to Mjongile, and all of that. He always reminded us all the time. Songezo was not an adventurist. He was an adventurist maybe in other things, but not in politics. He believed in scientific analysis and a staunch advocate of dialectical materialism. He was a revolutionary Democrat, an ideologue, a Marxist-Leninist. His perspective of the National Democratic Revolution was largely grounded on radical economic transformation that is responsive to the growing inequality across society as a whole, with large sections of black people, especially women and youth, mired in income poverty. Failure to decisively address these fault lines has the potential to undermine progress towards a united democratic consensus South Africa. In 2007, comrades, as I move towards conclusion, we were at the forefront of two big debates in the ANC. The first was about the two centers of power and our principled opposition thereof. It was not about attack on President Mbeki. It was not personal. Our debate was premised on the principle that there must always be one center of power in the ANC, which must also guide the implementation of the ANC policies in government for as long as the ANC remains a governing party and in power. This position won the day in Polokwane, and its core tenets remain valid to this day. The second debate was about defining the enemy of the National Democratic Revolution. We had a long discussion with Joel Mjongile about this, and he accused us. Joel Mjongile is the foremost theoretician of the ANC, and he accused us of ideological abomination. Now, we were seriously looking at our dictionaries. What is ideological abomination? We are committed. It is through this debate that the role of white monopoly capital came to be part of our discourse, albeit not as an enemy of the National Democratic Revolution. We were saying that white monopoly capital is the enemy of the National Democratic Revolution. And we were defeated in Mangaung about that. The Mangaung strategy and tactics highlighted that the transition has contributed to changes in the nature of capital. As a consequence, those who stand to benefit from the status quo will resist fundamental transformation, and thus the relationship with capital is one characterized by an approach of unity and struggle of the opposite. It was through this debate that we affirmed that the radical economic transformation as a core tenet of the NDR, not a factional construct that advances narrow self-serving interest. Radical economic transformation is about efforts to change the structure of the economy, to advance manufacturing and beneficiation, investment of more resources in productive activities, and comprehensive broad-based economic empowerment. We must be bold, comrades, and unapologetic in transforming the economy. If we fail in this task, we must advance cogent reasons and be held accountable for such failure. Songezo stood firm on this principle. It has always been his desire to come back to the ANC in the Western Cape. Zizi. A conversation we have had many a times. This was premised on his love and commitment to return the ANC to a pole position as a governing party in the Western Cape, to uplift the conditions of the poor and the working class. Songezo has always held the principled view that putting forward names for leadership roles must always be grounded on the principle, values, and sharpened perspective on the ideological disposition of such individuals in relation to advancing the task of the NDR. One of his last days, one of the things he did was to mention names. So I visited him and I asked him, why do you put names before you outline a perspective? And hence the statement which has been read in his obituary about the perspective of renewal of the ANC and advancing radical economic transformation. A message he penned in his Facebook wall is a stark reminder of the magnitude of the task at hand to advance the National Democratic Revolution. And I wish not to re-mention that and say, Madiba, your message has not fallen on the sand and scattered to the winds. The renewal of the ANC and advancing the task of the NDR remain at the center stage in the pursuit of the mission of our generation. We remain mindful of Frantz Fanon's instructive words that every generation has to discover its mission and either fulfill or betray it. Your stark reminder that radical economic transformation remains the mission of the current generation requires of us to move at a brisker pace in delivering a better life for all our people. Achieving renewal of the ANC requires of us to embrace and embody its timeless values and elevate this above all else. Each time we put forward names to stand for leadership roles, you have been emphatic that this must be individuals with the capacity and disposition to transcend the current constraints holding back our leadership from taking bold steps in implementing ANC policy. This must be individuals who embody the values of selflessness, commitment to service to the people, integrity, ethics, humility, honesty, etc. This is a commitment we must make as we encourage the younger generation to pick up your spear. Thank you for your strength and for your courage. Thank you for teaching us that the act of being involved in the struggle was about saving others and not about saving ourselves. And thank you for inculcating in us that tenacity and resoluteness, and that resoluteness are not just mere attributes to take for granted. And thank you, Madiba, for showing us that it is possible to overcome the darkest of days by shining light on ourselves and unto others. Go well, Songezo Mjongile. Go well, Madiba. Go well, my comrade. Go well, my brother. Ulibambe, lingasho, inkosi. Comrades, with those few words, a bidding farewell to Songezo Mjongile, I wish to call upon the Treasurer General of the ANC, aka Spokes, and to come and address us. And thank you to the family for giving us the conference. Manda!
Sorry, comrades, I was going to allow you to sing, but it's getting late now. You are aware that the funeral is tomorrow, so we need to conclude this service so that the family can go back home. Humile, the wife of Comrade Songezo, and the children, Utata Mjongile, Nomama Mjongile, the parents of Comrade Songezo, and the siblings, the entire family, relatives, and loved ones. NEC members here present, the Interim Provincial Committee of the ANC in the Western Cape, led by Comrade Lirumo, and all leaders at all levels of our movement. Veterans of our liberation struggle, the leadership of the SACP, COSATU and SANCO, current and former leaders of the ANC Youth League, leaders of the ANC Women's League, current and former leaders of COSA, SASCO, the YCL and the broader Progressive Youth Alliance, comrades and friends. Here we are this afternoon at this somber moment to salute and bid farewell to a great and dynamic leader of our movement, Comrade Songezo, Mjongile, Madiba, who has left us too soon with much pain that is difficult to bear. I take this opportunity, therefore, on behalf of the African National Congress, the revolutionary movement to which Comrade Songezo pledged his entire life, serving selflessly with every ounce of energy he had, to convey our heartfelt condolences to his wife, Humile, and the children, to his parents, to the family, relatives, and loved ones, as well as to his comrades and friends. Although death has robbed us of this priceless cadre and servant of our people, in unison we are today saying, death has not defeated him, for he has run his course to the last mile. With singleness of purpose we ask, death, where is thy sting? While Comrade Songezo may have lost the battle against cancer, he has done a lot to advance the struggle for the total emancipation of the people of South Africa. Now that he is gone, we are poorer. Our revolution is poorer, and our movement is poorer. I want to say to the family, Agwehlanga, Lungehlanga, Comrade Songezo has fought a good fight. The massive outpouring of condolences we have seen following his passing bears testimony to the reality that he touched many lives in a positive way. Though his life was cut short at a time when we were still expecting so much from him, he leaves behind a proud legacy. As an activist and revolutionary, Comrade Songezo was dependable and principled. He executed any task given to him with absolute commitment, sparing no energy nor effort. He had boundless energy. Comrade Songezo grew up within our movement. He was therefore a child of the ANC. He joined the struggle for liberation at a very young age as an activist of the Congress of South African Students, COSAS. Because of his bravery, his commitment, and his incisive political thinking, he was elected to lead this mighty and militant student organization as its president in 1993. Under his leadership, collective COSAS continued to be an important voice in the education struggle in our country. It was Comrade Songezo and his generation that led and won important victories in the struggle against the payment of examination fees and the banning of corporal punishment. Their effort led to the enactment of the National Schools Act, which took our nation further along the path of making a decisive and permanent break with the apartheid education and its legacy. Comrade Songezo went on to be part of the leadership collective of a vibrant ANC Youth League. As a leader of the ANC Youth League, Comrade Songezo was among those who pioneered and championed youth development and empowerment. In this regard, we credit him and his generation for the establishment of the National Youth Commission, the Umsobomvu Youth Fund, the South African Youth Council, and the National Youth Development Agency. The Youth League that Comrade Songezo and his collective led continued its historic role of being a feeder organization of radical and progressive ideas, as well as leadership to the African National Congress. It was a youth league that understood that the continued existence and relevance of the ANC depended on a vibrant and robust ANC Youth League. It worked hard to mobilize young people behind the objectives of the African National Congress. It was also unrelenting in its efforts to influence the policy positions and overall direction of the African National Congress. Comrade Songezo's revolutionary zeal and commitment saw him being elected into the leadership structures of the ANC in this province, including as a provincial secretary. This allowed him to serve in the national executive of our movement, the African National Congress. Those of us who served with him in the NEC can attest to the fact that he was unambiguous in advocating for the cause of young people, as well as all communities he represented as a leader. We will always remember Comrade Songezo for his high quality of political engagements. He never shied away from a debate. His arguments were always methodical. He always applied his mind thoroughly to issues. He infused theory with practice, fully understanding that the two are interlinked. Comrade Songezo was deeply immersed in the traditions of our movement. He always acted with utmost discipline and loyalty. He was always hardworking. He also fully appreciated that decisions of a collective need to be respected and defended, even by those who initially differed with them. Comrade Songezo was part of that generation of young people who contributed not only to the struggle for national liberation, but also were pioneers and trailblazers in the struggle for economic emancipation of the people of our country. He understood that political freedom without economic freedom is meaningless. He was part of those young people of our movement who not only theorized about the struggle for economic freedom, but were able to take practical steps to advance it. Comrade Songezo lived his life to the fullest. He struck the correct balance between his family life and his political life. He was also able to build strong social relations that cut across society. In doing this, he practiced what Marx said when he defined the essence of man as the following: no abstraction inherent in each single individual, but in reality, an ensemble of the social relations, close quote. Comrades, we know that towards his last days, Comrade Songezo expressed a wish to contribute towards the renewal of the ANC and the success of a national democratic revolution. On the 29th of August this year, even as his health was deteriorating, he called for the intensification of the struggle for the total emancipation of the people of South Africa. In particular, he called for the implementation of the Freedom Charter. He also called for action by our movement to win back the trust of the people of South Africa. He further called for the intensification of efforts towards Africa's development. We must also never forget his words when he said the following: "We need to change gear now, same as the Madiba generation did. The ANC can't die in our hands. The future of our people depends on it. There is no individual who is bigger than the ANC. It is either we save the ANC or we save individuals and sink it. The real question to me is, what is the mission of our generation?" Close quote. Comrades and compatriots, those of us whom Comrade Songezo leaves behind must take his words as our binding command and marching orders for the future. Accordingly, in honor of Comrade Songezo, let us today declare boldly that we will do everything necessary, sparing no effort, to contribute to the renewal of the ANC and the ultimate success of the National Democratic Revolution. In giving us these marching orders, Comrade Songezo knew that the success of the National Democratic Revolution, whose end goal is to build a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa, depends on the emergence of a renewed and united African National Congress. It is only a renewed and united ANC that will be able to win the war against poverty, unemployment and inequality. A war that has been made even harder and more complex today as we battle the COVID-19 pandemic. It is also a renewed and united ANC that will defend and deepen the gains of the past 26 years of freedom and democracy. We need a renewed and united ANC in order to win the war on crime and corruption in both the public and the private sector. Furthermore, a renewed and united ANC will be able to effectively lead society towards a decisive victory in the ongoing effort to defeat gender-based violence, femicide, and the abuse of women, young girls, and children. As directed by Comrade Songezo, we must act now to save the ANC, lest it dies in our hands, and the gains of our revolution are reversed. Comrades, let me also reiterate that the renewal of the ANC will not happen without a vibrant, strong, and robust ANC Youth League. Accordingly, one of our immediate tasks, once again, in honor of Comrade Songezo, is to begin in earnest with the work of rebuilding the structures of the ANC Youth League. Young people themselves must be at the forefront and at the cutting edge of rebuilding the ANC Youth League. We need an ANC Youth League that will be effective in executing its important tasks of championing youth struggles and mobilizing young people behind the objectives of the African National Congress. We need an ANC Youth League that will be at the forefront of all struggles of young people everywhere in the country. The Youth League must be a home for professional young people, working young people in suburbs, in townships and rural areas, young people at schools and in universities, young people in sports and in the arts, as well as young people in places of worship. We also need an ANC Youth League that will continue to be the political preparatory school of the ANC and a repository of fresh ideas that will benefit the ANC. Equally, and like the youth of 1944 that formed the ANC Youth League 76 years ago, young people of today must lead the renewal of the ANC. They must infuse into the ANC new ideas and new energy. They must keep the ANC relevant. In line with Comrade Songezo's last wishes, the renewal of the ANC must include deliberate action led by young people aimed at closing the social distance between our movement and the people of South Africa. The ANC must remain relevant and responsive to the conditions of our people. It must speak the language of the people. The renewal of the ANC must also include the restoration of the historic values of our movement, the values of hard work, of honesty, of accountability, of unity, values of selflessness, of sacrifice, of discipline, of democratic debate, and criticism and self-criticism. The renewal must also include ensuring that the ANC remains a true parliament of the people of South Africa, united in their diversity. To renew the ANC will further require that we do everything necessary to build an ethical movement. Comrades, it is fitting that as we bid farewell to this revolutionary and organic intellectual, we draw from the words of the Cuban national hero, freedom fighter, poet, and intellectual, Jose Marti, who in one of his simple verses has the following to say: "From this world I will depart, and the natural door will try. Green leaves will cover the cart on which I am taken to die. Dawn in darkness let me lie, with traitors to come undone. I am good, and as the good die, I will die face to the sun." We will not let Comrade Songezo in darkness lie, for he has been good to us. And as the good die, he has died face to the sun. Lalangotolo Madiba, we will pick up your fallen spear. Viva ANC, viva. Viva. Viva ANC Youth League, viva. Viva. Viva COSAS, viva. Viva. Long live the spirit of Comrade Songezo, long live. Long live. Long live the spirit of Comrade Songezo, long live. Long live. Phila kunapakati Madiba, phila kunapakati. Siyabulela.
Please.
Comrade Command, the unit is ready for the removal of the flag from the coffin. Permission to remove. Please proceed.
Pharmacy Susan Commander. Masenze kanje General Pharmacy Susan. My family manditsho ukuba sesifikele esiphelweni. Masibulele ukuba sinipanishile. Sinibulele ngoba mama uSongezo uxele inyani ayingomuntu waxesha. Ukuba besidile ngexesha ingabi noSongezo. Masixolise mama Mjongile kodwa ke we will never have an opportunity to celebrate a life of Songezo again. For us this is an opportunity mama. Ndiyayazi bangomso we are preparing but sicela nisixolele lelusapho lwaMjongile noRhoto. We had to go this mile because he was many things to many of us. Esimthanda sonke. Sizawuthatha ke le flag le mama uMjongile njengoba besekushiwo. Izawuthathwa inikwe uTreasurer General. uTreasurer General uzayinika uMandisa on behalf of the African National Congress. Ungaqhubekeka ke okay.
Comrade Neto, Comrade advance.
Mandisa, would you come forward, please? reflect ilifa olifumana kwi-ANC egameni katatakho, lilifa lakho eli. Say right kwakho. Thank you very much, Mandisa. You may be seated. Mama Mjongile ukhokela usapho. Siyamdulula ke ngoku unyana wakho. Simsa apho besimthatha khona. Ahamba ayophumla ngolusuku lokugqibela phambi aye kwikhaya lakhe lokugqibela. Mandichaze njena ke izaziso ndisuke ke ngokuba nguzizwe program director ndibe sistate sefamily. Bangomso, the funeral will take place exactly at 10 o'clock. Given the regulations, the list has been done. If you are not on the list, we really sincerely request, I'm not sure if the IP of the ANC has made any arrangement. Don't even come closer to the venue of the funeral, which is Kwezi Community Center, not here. And tomorrow, now I speak as a spokesperson of the family. Tomorrow is a private family funeral service. It's important to emphasize that point. It's a private family. As Nika they allowed ANC few seats as the ANC. And we want to thank you, Mama, in advance for that. Because there was nothing forces you to do that. If you are not on that list, we do request, comrades, let's allow the family to celebrate and mourn the life of Songezo in a manner in which they will do tomorrow. Let's allow that. As we come to an end, nobody must leave until Songezo leaves first. I'll request comrades from MK Comrade Tony to come back, or I'm Comrade Youth League, the former leaders of the Youth League. I'm Tatu Songezo, I'm Pintisele back to Klamoto Imilindeleyo, Balula, and others, Ibeom Tata, Sipinde Simkotus. I would request you, Comrades Sotasha Uzoivala, as we stand, comrades of the Youth League, please come forward, Sotasha Amulele, and then we proceed to the Songezo Wakotu.
Thank you very much. Let me take the opportunity to welcome and thank all those who have attended here. The program directors, thank you very much, Comrade Zizi, Comrade Ronaldo, the family of Comrade Songezo. Thank you very much for borrowing us Comrade Songezo. You spent time with him. Abefundisi, thank you very much. The team that was assigned to prepare for this memorial service, thank you very much, comrades. The leadership of the ANC, led by Comrade TG, thank you very much. Just quickly, as I leave the stage, Songezo left us with this. 1 second. On the 29th of August, exactly at 10:44, Songezo posted in our wall of the IPC, I quote, "I'm sorry, comrades, to be subjective, but have been crying for the first time about the revolution is being betrayed in a long time. Our hate, petty jealousies, racism, tribalism is killing the NTR project. I really feel we need each other irrespective of our personal ambitions. I am tired of fighting for nothing. Can real revolutionaries stand up in conduct and service of the people? Ditiniwe Makabane. This is probably my last act, depending where God carries me." Close quote. Comrades, that's a message that Comrade Songezo is leaving us with. So I'm calling on all of us, let's honor this message that Comrade Songezo has left us with. Thank you very much.
Special thanks to you, Comrade Phoebe, and your team. You worked very hard to get us where we are. Thank you very much. Yan Makabane and youth league. Akokeno Akumlungo Mnyama Walusikika.
Son Say viva, he's a legend, and I'd smile and my mind would fly. Every day of my life watching you. This is Naga, Nibubona Bubele Bak, Ninjena Jengu.